Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Outer Realm, the spin off show of the Outer Realm, which airs on Wednesday and Thursday nights. We are broadcasting here on the United Public Radio Network 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM from beautiful New Orleans. Today, very excited about this show, actually, because I love Sedona. I don't know too many people who do not. And Dan Shaw, the Vortex detective, as we call him, he's been on the show a few times on the Outer Realm, and just a wealth of information talking about different vortexes, ley lines, connecting triangles, and really makes you see things from a different perspective, and you realize how magical this place really is, the entire planet. So, reading some of his stuff has been enlightening to say the least, and this one isn't going to be any different. So, without further ado, the vortex detective himself, Dan Shaw. Hello.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited to have you here. I saw this come up on your on your stream on social media, and I was just like, I want in. This is the best way to put it. So
Right, but I think we should start by you telling us what you love about Sedona. What was your lived experience there? What happened?
I've actually never been, but I'm a researcher by nature, and I've done so many shows on power spots. I've interviewed people who live there full time, the experiences they have. I've had people send me, like rocks from the red mountains, the
Mm.
soil, and I just pick up on all of that, being, sensitive, having mediumship abilities, and you just feel it coming through. But the stories are endless, down to the indigenous people, from the ancient history, the hidden knowledge that apparently exists about, people coming over from early on, possibly ancient Egyptians, extraterrestrials. What isn't there to be enthralled about?
Right, it's got all the elements, what I call the vortex markers. They're all there.
Yes.
Sure, yeah.
Yes. I think so. So what was your experience there? Why don't we start with that?
My experience there is actually pretty limited. I find myself kind of backing into publishing a Sedona Vortex book, although I've been studying paranormal places, vortexes, ley lines for
Yeah.
more than 30, almost 40 years now.
Wow.
This material is even older than that. It actually predates my focusing on ley lines and vortices. So while
Wow.
most of I've written a handful of books about vortexes, and most of them are highly factual, fact based, geophysics based.
Okay.
I call what I'm doing the science behind Earth magic. And that study of Earth magic or geomancy is an outgrowth of my study of alchemy. And about a year and a half, I spent in Austin, Texas,
Mm.
in a community that was studying various healing modalities, and a couple of people in the group were channeling. And so some 40 years later, I came across this manuscript, which I didn't quite realize I even had in my possession.
Mm.
And it's channeled material largely from this time when there was this group that had focalized around this channeled being in Austin, Texas, channeled being who called himself Father Andre. So uh,
Wow.
I was quite delighted to find that I had this Sedona Vortex manuscript.
Yes.
After all these years, it's quite a confluence of coming back together. It was because I had studied that time in Austin, Texas, studying alchemy, that I eventually came to study earth magic, earth mysteries. And however, back in the day, this was in the time right after the harmonic convergence.
Mm.
If you remember that global
Yes,
couple of
yeah,
days of global meditation back in '87, I believe it was.
yeah, yes.
Was this was after that, and I'd already left Austin, Texas, so I did not. Uh, the group went to Sedona for this Gateways Experience training, and I did not go with them to Sedona for that training. I missed the training, and this is a couple of this Sedona Vortex Gateway Experience book that I'm going to give free to all your listeners.
I'm gonna put it
Uh,
up right here.
they will,
Bam!
they will. Oh, there it is. If
Yes.
your listeners will send an email to me at my email address, energy@vortexmaps.com. When they send me an email, I'll send them a link to download free this Sedona Vortex Gateway Experience
So
ebook.
it's energy at
vortexmaps.com.
okay, I'm just gonna put it in
Great, great.
the chat.
Yeah, yeah.
Vortex
I
mats.
want to send you your listeners a free copy of this
Okay.
book. This isn't a sales pitch.
No, no,
Uh,
it's true.
at this
It's
point.
free. Yeah.
I was just thrilled to come across this manuscript, and so it's part channeled material from Father Andre. I myself, I wouldn't be so bold as to say I know the true nature of Sedona Vortices. I'm a little more humble than that. I don't think I have all the answers, but that's how it came through to me. So
Yeah.
I remain true to that title. The material, the time I spent with this channeled being was profoundly impactful for me then and continues to be.
Mm.
So I'm just doubly delighted to
Yes.
have the opportunity to share this material. And it's not the kind of scientific material that you'll find in my other books, How Vortexes Affect Us, or
Mhm.
those other books, more geophysical. This one's very much more psycho-emotional based.
Yes.
So you had a
Yes.
chance to look it over a little bit?
Entirely.
Oh, good, good, good.
Yes. It's true. I completely resonated with all of it. And you're right. It's a different type of read than your usual stuff. It's very, like the word illusion kept coming up. I'm thinking, crap, we're in a matrix. That's the first thing that went through my head, right?
Mhm.
The simulation, like, and now that you say this, that Father Andre is just channeled being, I'm like, he'd know.
Uh, right. Well, right.
It was
Um,
interesting. No,
but
but it
now that
was
you say simulation in this context, actually,
yes,
I think it's a matrix of our own creation, of our own
yes,
consciousness that we're just
yeah,
hypnotized into externalizing the reality that we experience.
yes, yes. I found it interesting that it came up, and even in the way he would put in his description. Well, how would we word this, in your time or in the way that you guys would understand it in the terminology? And I thought it was very, very fascinating. I thought, wow, because a lot of people, I see channeled um, channeled information coming out more and more, and people are really leaning into it. So I think you hit on a time. I mean, back in when he wrote it or he was a part of it, as far as when this information first came to be, and things that are happening now with beings such as Bashar, people are so into it now. It's like it's doing a resurgence. So I think this book would definitely is the time to reintroduce it.
Oh, nice to hear. You, I think, have your finger on the pulse of that more than I would. I've
Yeah.
since focused in. I've focused in very tightly on this interface between, or unity between, the human energy field and the planetary energy field.
Mhm.
My vortex research, I come to it from the position of there's this unity between the human energy field and the planetary energy field, and so it affects us, we affect it, and we can use it for physical healing, psychic opening, and harmonizing the planet.
Yes.
Now, not every vortex researcher has that approach, but I find uh, that I was deeply influenced by the the ideas of personal and planetary ascension and the emotional component of vortexes. I've long held that the vortexes the places resonate. Often they have a predominant resonate with a chakra in our body. So different vortexes, you might, on an oversimplistic level, say, well, Sedona's got that very red root chakra energy.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe be oversimplifying, because there's so many vortexes, for one thing, so many vortexes going on at Sedona. But I've long held that there's this kind of relationship between the chakras and the places. And then in the Sedona book, Father Andre deepens and expands that so profoundly. In my opinion, I mean, see for yourself.
Yeah. Oh no, I love how he breaks down every one and talks about what it does for you. So before, I guess, getting into that, can you describe the differences with energy between the male and the female, and then the combination of both when it comes to vortexes?
Wow. Well, it's so many different researchers have gone over it so many different times.
Yeah.
I have done my best to survey the literature and to also suspend other people's ideas and opinions so that I can have that direct experience. And so many researchers have described that there's this polarity of, well, first of all, from a standpoint of alchemy, everything is this duality in unity, that there's the yin yang, that the polarities are truly a unity.
Mm-hmm.
And so that carries forth to the vortexes and the ley lines. Let's say that researchers have found that some are more yang, some are more yin, and then perhaps some are more neutral. And in my studies, and you mentioned Bashar, and he also talks about ley lines and vortices in I think a real useful way, and that there are these there's 3 types of places, because when you have waves of energy coming together, there's an interference that happens. There's actually 2 kinds of interference, or really 3 that happen. There's constructive interference and destructive interference, and you can picture those ripples on a pond, that there'll sometimes be a rogue wave that's higher than the other waves, but generally there's constructive interference where the waves come together and they double, and then there's destructive interference where they cancel each other out, kind of like noise canceling headphones. So you can think of vortices and ley lines in this way, that there's these places where the energy comes together to heighten the energy, or in a certain sense depress the energy, or to have zero it out, what Bashar calls null zones. So that gives way to this like masculine, feminine, 3 types of vortices. And so all the ordinary associations that you would have with these archetypal polarities you could apply to the earth. But I don't like to typify like, well, Sedona's masculine, because, well, again,
No.
I don't have all the answers. To me, it's oversimplifying things to say that. But if you go there and you have the direct experience, you might feel that, oh my gosh, of course, this pool is so feminine. Look at how it's like so cradling and nurturing. And you might have all these other experiences that we think of as being the more feminine. And then, oh wow, this peak with these high winds and everything. Oh my God, what a masculine energy. And so again, you can think of the promontories and peaks and such as being the masculine, and the valleys and caves as being feminine, but that would be oversimplistic.
Yes. Essentially, I like to say it has an order of like balance, the balance between the region. And I know you and I have talked on other shows about areas that seem to be high energy, and how the ancients would gravitate to places like this, right? I think a lot of it is that they didn't have the frequency interference that we have today. I can leave that right there. But so they could tap into the more natural frequencies. So what is it that would attract people to places like this, like Sedona with 10 vortexes? What blows my mind that there's so many in one place. Is this uncommon?
Oh, well, yes, the text definitely says that the number of vortexes at Sedona is the reason why this workshop was held there, that there's a high number. Uh, you might say there's 9 because that 10th one is the unity of those other 9 in the scheme in this book. But I
Mm.
like to say that there's an infinite number of vortexes. There's an infinite number of vortexes everywhere,
Mm.
wherever you are. You don't have to go to Sedona, but there's that earth energy is available to you everywhere all the time.
Mm.
But at Sedona, you could think of Sedona as being a place where a lot of energy lines come together, where the land forms, and the other, let's say, we're going to oversimplify a lot on this hour and a half, I guess. But
That's okay.
the there's, to my mind, the first place to look at what causes a vortex is the electromagnetic field. After we look at that, then we can proceed on to look at other types of energies and consciousness and magic and
Mhm.
intention for sure. But we're gonna not to oversimplify, but that's where I start. It's a very rich field. We're going to look at the electromagnetism. So, wow, when we look at Sedona, it's got some incredible geophysics going on, electromagnetism, and there's the iron in the rocks and the changes in elevation and the creeks running through and how that affects the electrical ions in the air.
Mhm.
And in the book I mentioned earlier, How Vortexes Affect Us, I talk about all the dozens of different things that contribute to the electromagnetic field.
Mhm.
But of course, that's just for starters. As soon as you get people going there and putting in their thought forms and
Mm.
holding ceremony, then you get this whole other layer of energy.
Mhm.
So you got all that going on in Sedona for sure. And the book also does mention that some places are islands of infinity where there's not this large overlay of collective consciousness, which is so often,
Mhm.
let's say, imperfect,
Mhm.
and that these islands or these locations may move over time. And to just to revisit our last the male female question,
Mhm.
these places are like ourselves too, and they also go through cycles of, let's say, activity and passivity, and you may experience them differently at different times.
So why would they and again, being energy based, so I get that side of things, but, why would they go through these ups and downs and the change of their frequencies? Is it, for example, again, because 'cause we're talking about Sedona, could it have something to do with the multitude of people that go in to tap into this energy?
Oh, that's what the text suggests for
Mhm.
sure, is that the again, this, like, there's areas that are kind of untouched, relatively untouched by the collective consciousness.
Mm.
And those places are especially useful places to go and tap into your divine self, let's
Mhm.
say, because
Yes.
there's not that overlaying thought form pollution, if I can call it that.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas the indigenous community, of course, were well aware of these places, and I find it interesting how they would even put many of their healing, where you get they put the large wheels in place, and they invite you to come in and have these incredible experiences, and I've known people who have done them, who are just like, there's nothing like it. So,
I agree. I agree.
yeah.
Yeah, these places that where there's this heightened energy are brilliant places to conduct ceremony. Those are good places, especially at, let's say, solstices and equinoxes,
Yes.
and other astrological times.
Mhm.
Good times to go practice your psychic abilities
Right.
at these places.
Now, do you know, because this is what you do, vortexes, ley lines, are there other places, in your research that compare to this specific location with all of these vortexes that, I mean, they've got all kinds of hidden ones. We can't map them all. I'm sure you may in your lifetime manage to get close.
Yeah, no. From my standpoint, the definition of a vortex from an electromagnetic standpoint, it's an anomaly in the electromagnetic field. So
Right.
here we are, we're immersed in this churning ocean of electromagnetic energy,
Mhm.
energy from the sun, energy from the core of the earth, and so there's all these timing factors. We're just completely immersed in this churning sea of energy. And so, I'm sorry, you got me monologuing. What would you restate
Oh,
your statement for me?
as far as have you come across other areas?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
so there's, again, I'm trying to just answer that question, but to set the stage from my
Mhm,
standpoint, there's that energy is available everywhere all the time. There's no two places that are alike. As soon as you may feel kind of settled and normal
mhm,
state in this energy field in your office or whatever it is, but as soon as you move across the landscape, you expose yourself to different elevations or different electrical ions in the air, different
mm,
pressures and temperatures and humidities, and all these what I consider to be factors of the vortex effect. I've just cast the broadest possible net, you'll notice. So
mm,
um, as we move across the landscape, we're exposing ourselves to essentially an infinitude of different kinds of surface and subsurface features and landforms. And there's also, it's washing over us at the same time. So
mhm,
number one, and there's no separation between the vortexes either. So
mm,
sure, it's great to go to Sedona and go boom, one vortex after another and activate all your chakras. And you can do that in, you know there are many landscapes where you can go experience, a chakra activation at numerous different chakras at numerous different places, and Sedona is one of those. And let's say Shasta is
mm.
another,
Yes, I know.
and the Grand Tetons and Lake Louise, and
Yes,
all these places. Uh,
yes. I think it's probably why ancient people just settled around these areas because they knew, the energy. They were just much more in tuned than what we are today, even though there are people who live in the areas. I don't think I've ever spoken to anyone who has been even to Mount Shasta or some of these other places. Some people say Stonehenge is the same, where a lot of the ancient monuments were built. People just have these incredible experiences. I know with Sedona, they talk about a doorway being at the top of, the Red Mountain, which is, reputedly this large archway that many people have witnessed blue lights coming from it. Is that just like an energy vortex thing going on, or is there actually something there that you could
oh
just
my
jump
gosh,
into?
I
I
hadn't heard
know.
haven't heard of that, but that's
Yeah.
not surprising. In fact, it's kind of surprisingly common that
Ah,
people are reporting these orbs, blue
yes.
lights,
Yes.
plasma, well,
Yes. Yes.
every different paranormal experience does seem to be associated with these paranormal places.
Hmm.
It's kind of
Yeah.
a fine line to draw between. For me, I'm
Yeah.
trying to put the focus on the place, and
Yes.
so the paranormal it's so vast that I've got to coordinate off my little blinders of I'm looking at how the place
Mm-hmm.
might impact or contribute or enhance the paranormal. That's my kind of my
Mm-hmm.
sweet spot there. And sure enough, you do find and this is what I call vortex marker too, every type of paranormal experience reported from, what's the Bridgetown Triangle or whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Whatever people are
Yes.
calling a triangle, because there seem to be a cluster of these paranormal phenomena,
Mm.
whether it's Pilates talking about the missing 411 around
Mhm.
like boulder fields or bodies of water or whatever.
Mhm.
There's that intersection between paranormal and place, which
Mhm.
I trace back to, again, this alchemical idea of the unity
Right.
of all, and especially the unity between this planetary geophysical energy field we're talking about in the most mundane terms, like a geophysical electromagnetic. But
Yes.
then, on beyond that, after that,
Mhm.
the unity between that field and every electromagnetic cell of our body.
Mhm.
And so that when we do, even though this change in magnetic field may be relatively slight as we move from, let's say, one lava field to another,
Mhm.
right? Let's say we're at Eastern Oregon, Steens Mountain area, and there's this long, long history of magnetic, well, lava uh, erupting and then cooling and hardening and aligning with the Earth's magnetic field at the time. And you get those paleomagnetic,
Mhm.
historic magnetic fields
Mhm.
in these lava beds. And then you move your body across these complex electromagnetic fields. Or maybe you're in a ship and you're not thinking about all the complex electromagnetic fields in the column of seawater below you.
Mhm. Oh, makes makes perfect sense to me. Like, I'm even thinking that, like, the blue light would be like, to me, I see that as energy. So if you are, but I also see stone as having certain types of energy and a resonance, like, you have even historically speaking, where people have even heard voices, like the stone just holds that memory. They have found it even in old pottery, right? And they have found even in cathedrals that have been around for, like hundreds and hundreds of years, where people could still get the faint sound of, music, from
Slow
chanting.
down, slow down. Wow, you're
My
blowing my
brain goes
mind
like
here.
this, Dan. My brain
No,
goes like this.
that was actually it was brilliant. I'm teasing you, but you're
Yeah.
right. There's about five
Oh,
different elements.
yeah.
If we could deconstruct what you just said
Yeah.
there, you just laid on five different layers of
Yeah.
what I call the vortex effect. I may be overusing that term now, but you've talked about the stone and the resonance of the stone, so we can kind of deconstruct that as I do in my book Stonehenge Gardening Tips,
Yes.
using earth energies in your garden. You
Yes.
look at a monument like Stonehenge, you can deconstruct all the different elements. You can deconstruct the actual elevation of the ground plan if you cross section it, how it looks like ring and ditch, but
Mm.
it's an interrupted ring and ditch. And then, so that's the ground plan. But then you look at the stones and the stones themselves, and they're blue stones, and they seem to have come from Preseli. And so they're resonating at the same frequency as blue stones in Arkansas. It's that same stone. It's uh,
Yeah. I
not a,
have some. Yeah, I
you know,
love it.
every quartz crystal resonates at a precise frequency. Every blue stone's going to resonate at the frequency of Stonehenge. So you got that resonance going on. And then
Mhm.
whatever your shape and size of the stone is, that
Mhm.
gives you this mass. And so that gives you a resonant frequency because you got the dimensions and that's going to resonate. And then
Mm.
if it's an unhewn stone or a hewn stone, and then, so, we've got all these layers upon layers of how that stone might resonate. Then you add acoustics to it. And
Mhm.
let's say, uh, this ties into something we kind of touched on earlier. If you are drumming or chanting, now that's kind of an energy that's also going to stimulate that stone, and that stone's going to uh, probably have a cycle uh,
Mhm.
uh, of charging and discharging.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But see, and that's again, the drumming would create a whole frequency in itself. So when I'm thinking, okay, there's a blue light up there at the top, you're looking at the incredible mountain, you're looking
Mhm.
at this vortex, you're looking at a combination of people who are coming on and adding to this as well. I don't
Yeah.
know. So I was wondering, is there a logical explanation for it?
Well, that's the thing. See, I do
Yeah,
tend to go for the logical first. I mean, let's go
sure.
for Occam's razor. What's the simplest answer? If there is a
Yeah.
geophysical answer, well, there's plenty of candidates actually, because what you see going on a geophysics
Mhm.
level is, and not precisely at Sedona for the moment, but we'll get there, that uh, we have underground, of course, we have tectonic plates, and
Mhm.
those
Ley
plates
lines?
are flexible and they're moving. And
Mhm.
well, we haven't got to, we'll get to ley lines, but just on
Yes.
a pure geophysical level now,
Yes.
you've
Yes.
got you got the tectonic plates, and then you've got other kinds of faults going on where plates are uh, forced up against each other in various ways. Okay, so all that's going on. So that the Earth is under that intense pressure, right?
Mhm.
Right. So as the moon orbits around the Earth actually deforms, not just the oceanic tides, but there's actually continental tides. The Earth is actually deforming
Mm.
on this. It's wider at the waist, the Earth is, than it is tall. And as the moon orbits around, the Earth is actually being compressed on a daily cycle, and
Mm,
that's contributing to the electrical currents in the Earth. Where there is quartz crystal in the Earth, it's certainly under pressure, and it's under these cyclic pressures, and that contributes to these daily fluctuations
mm,
in electrical currents in the Earth. So
mm.
you've got this piezoelectricity, other kinds of electrical currents in the Earth, depending on the
Yeah.
moisture and the metal content and all that going
Mm.
on.
Mhm.
And then where rock splits, this is another contributor to and maybe potential cause of these electrical discharges, if that's what people were describing. When rock splits, there's a kind of an electrical emission. It's called fracto emission. Fracto as in fracture, fracto emission. So if you were to split a rock with a chisel, there would be a charge of energy released when it splits.
Right. Right.
Fracto emission.
Right. So there's the logic. And let's talk about ley lines, because Sedona is basically, it's believed that there's a convergence of several ley lines that come through here.
For sure. And you can actually see one of the patterns behind me here.
Yes.
This is the Earth star North America. It's perhaps hard to see on screen, but you can see it at vortexmaps.com.
Mm-hmm.
These are the two maps that I published here. Call this one the Earth star globe because it folds up into a globe.
Mm-hmm.
This is the one that people are probably somewhat familiar with from maybe seeing on the History Channel or what have you. And this is a 3D model
Wow.
of the Earth grid, all done up with
Ley
tape.
lines.
So this would be the planetary pattern, and
Wow.
then everywhere as you zoom in. For instance, on Western North America, you might find other patterns such as this one around the Grand Tetons with these 19 points that include Sedona and Shasta.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a certain geometry and a certain energy. Here's one pattern that runs through Sedona. Nicholas Mann has a brilliant book about the Sedona landscape temple where he shows a pattern of a 5 and a 6-pointed star that share a point, and set of chakras, and a bird and snake. So there's many different systems, almost as many as there are researchers.
Right.
And so Sedona is, there's a reason that it attracts and again, a vortex marker anywhere where there's this kind of collection of spiritual
Mm-hmm.
communities, such as Shasta. Well, there's another indication that there's something going on. There's maybe a heightened earth energy there. There's
Mm-hmm.
good cultural sites, that kind of thing.
Right. Right. So what would cause, and again, I'm thinking logic, because there have been a lot of reports of, thunder even on clear days, which, I mean, you hear thunder, not everything's happening right in your space, it's way up there, or sounds, like strange sounds, like bells, and that just happen out in the atmosphere, way up there. You're on top of a mountain and you're hearing all this. Is there something like, what would cause something like that? In your knowledge, if
Okay.
if it
Yeah.
doesn't happen,
Yeah.
that's okay. Yeah,
Where to begin exactly? That
yeah.
when people are having this paranormal experience of their place, that can take almost an infinitude of forms. And sometimes people are smelling cigars when they're out in an open field. That 100 years ago there was a saloon there, or something. Whatever the
Yeah, yes,
backstory
yes,
is. People
yes.
may be getting auditory experiences through the veil, let's say, of time
Mm,
and space, or they may get like the smell of the ocean
mhm,
when they're not at the shore.
right.
So it's kind of different for everybody, but
Mhm,
it's a deep and rich field when you start to talk about acoustics and how that ties into our experience of the place, and how, for example, I was talking earlier about places that can activate the different chakras, and you start to talk about acoustics,
mhm.
and now you're in something that is pretty hard science and provable in terms of, well, I can
Yes.
measure these frequencies, and the frequencies change from place to place,
Mhm,
and For me, one of the poster child for vortex is waterfall, because waterfall, you're getting a kind of a white noise, a very rich mix of frequencies from all the different sounds of the falling water. And then as you move around the waterfall, you change your location and orientation to it. You're going to change how the sound is coming to you through your ears. Each ear is slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe standing over a bridge of a creek is actually another lovely example, because as you change your connection, your unity with that surrounding acoustic field, wow, that's going to there's going to be these minute frequencies that create this beat frequency that's in the range of your brain frequencies and such, and you can just go. And then what about built monuments? So it's a real rich question
Mm.
that you're touching on.
I go back to, for sound, I go back to, again, the mountains, stone, um, will will resonate. And if you have a lot of people doing ceremonial stuff around them, I would imagine that would explain away bells, like a residual sound, even in the paranormal, but also I think something that imprints, right?
Yeah, well, for sure, we didn't quite finish out that earlier train of thought about all the
Yeah.
energies that get layered on the stone, but
Hmm.
uh, I don't consider myself particularly psychic, but
Yes.
I myself have had the experience of the landscape carrying physical and emotional energy, where I can tell the story.
Yes, of course.
I was in Arizona, and there's this lovely, I think it's a state park, which is Walnut Canyon, where these cliff dwellings.
Mm.
And it's kind of like the Grand Canyon way. In fact, very much, because it's got all the same layers, the Kaibab layer and this and that,
Hmm.
smaller.
Yeah.
And it's got a bunch of wild herbs and medicinal herbs and native plants and such. And it's like the Grand Canyon in that there's signs that say going down is optional, coming out is mandatory. It's a very, very strenuous hike in and out, and I'm fit, so I'm not going to be scared to take a hike down Walnut Canyon,
Hmm.
for sure. And I'm entering native territory, so I'm being just as super, super mindful as I can.
Hmm.
Forget the exact reason that I've taken the insoles out of my shoes. I've got them in a different shoe or some such thing. So I'm walking kind of extra slow, mindful, just step by step, going in meditative, not just there for the tourism. And I get to essentially the edge of the canyon there. It's a precipice. And my heart just started racing. And I couldn't quite figure out what that was about, but I laughed because it was so pronounced. And here I had been like almost tiptoeing in. And I wasn't coming back up out, I wasn't exerted. And the people coming back up out, they were whipped, some of them.
Hmm.
And so I proceed to start down the staircase down into the canyon. After about 3 steps, my knees were quivering and shaking as though I couldn't take another step.
Mm.
And I just laughed out loud, because I just knew for sure that those weren't my knees
Ha ha ha
that I
ha.
that I was feeling. That was the energy, I think, in the stone. Now
Yeah.
you could maybe
Yes.
sidestep the stone and say, well, it was more empathic. It didn't have to do with the vibrations that were in the stone. But my impression was, it was about the place. And
Hmm.
furthermore, as I proceeded along, there were some real energetic reasons, the crystal in the rock for one,
Mm.
and the Mormon tea for another,
Hmm.
that there'd be this real association with a high heart rate at the place energetically.
Sure. I mean, especially if you're just surrounded by stone, it's
So
going to be a resonance coming from everywhere.
so there's a name for that memory in the stone, or being able to read that
Mm.
psychic ability to read the memory from the thing, of course, and
Mm.
that's called psychometry.
Yes. Yes. But did you know you could do that? There have been archaeological um, pieces that have surfaced over the years, either with a stone or even a clay, which I found interesting, where it almost plays like an album. Like, you could hear sounds that come out of it. People have reported, and this is like scientific stuff. It's not just an average Joe taking an archaeological piece out of something from ancient Rome, sort of thing. But they started sort of, I'm not quite sure how they did it, if they did it with water, but when they did it, they could hear little voices coming from it. They could hear music, like they were getting different sounds, or they started testing and working with different pieces. So, I mean, if that's the case, that really does have some staying power. But again, in stone or
Oh wow.
an
Well, that's
earth substance.
that's that's a very suggestive idea there. I mean, it leads me in various kinds of directions. My own mentor, who was Roger
Mhm,
Armstrong,
mhm.
has a website which is called wasapsychicchild.com.
Yeah.
Wasapsychicchild.com.
Mhm,
And he taught people to remote view into things, including artwork, so
mhm,
that if you saw, let's say, a petroglyph that your conscious mind couldn't interpret, that you could follow a certain protocol, and you could actually enter into essentially any artwork
mhm,
and look around at the real time and space when it was being created, and empathize with the creator,
mhm.
and understand the symbolism and meaning and such.
That is just bizarre, but I love it. I love it. I
But,
love anything that, you can
well,
scientifically kind of attach
right.
to something, right?
Well, it's not a remote viewing
Yeah,
because he called it local remote viewing, and
yeah,
so that my mechanic is incredible like that. He can just kind of know
yeah,
what's going on with the vehicle.
yeah. I know. It's insane. I love it. Um, so in the book, it talks about shattering the illusion of limitation.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for bringing us back to that.
Yes.
The purpose of my work
Mhm,
as the Vortex Detective is to really point back from this the paranormal places and the earth mysteries
mhm,
back to the principles of alchemy. There,
mhm,
geomancy is a subset of alchemy, so all the same rules and principles apply.
mhm,
So that what we're doing is with earth magic, hopefully, what we're doing is a kind of an alchemy. We're
mhm,
working to perfect ourselves, our physical bodies, and as you really see in the Sedona book, to perfect our emotional bodies as well. In
mhm,
fact, Father Andre taught about the four bodies: uh, the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. So we're we ourselves are the great alchemical experiment in laboratory, and we're working to perfect ourselves
mhm,
towards our personal ascension. And the planet is also on its own ascension path
mhm,
and evolving its divine conscious being, and it's evolving towards its ascension as well. So our job hopefully is to act as midwives or facilitators
mhm,
of personal and planetary ascension, so that when you or your listeners go to a spot, let's say a park, it doesn't have to be a state park or a national park, could be just a pocket
mm,
park.
mhm,
You go to some place where you can connect with the earth. There's some plants, there's some animals. You can spend some time with a tree, however you do that,
grounding, hug a
whatever
tree. Yeah.
whatever it's going to be. Uh,
Mhm,
those those are opportunities to have that shamanic experience of unity with the place. It has the potential to heal us, and to harmonize and heal the planet as well. So uh, the place, just as much as time,
mhm,
place also gives us a more direct connection to the divine, which is of course available everywhere all the time.
mhm, and relinquishing control. That
Yeah.
seems to be the big one. I was happy to see that sort of getting mentioned as well because of this ego, which is it's like that's I truly think is the imprisonment. When he speaks of imprisonment, it's just like
Hmm.
the ego that just keeps us from taking that step.
Yeah,
These
this is a real clear, again, emotional approach. It involved rebirthing and deep tissue body work and dance and all manner of very physical approaches. Uh, this was the late 80s. There was a bit, wide, broad influence coming through that group in Austin, Texas, and Father Andre as well. So there was this kind of Earhart seminar training, kind of pounding and screaming, kind of, I imagine, going on. And there,
Mm,
I, I never experienced death myself. That's what I'm imagining. But
mhm,
the there's this profound uh, emphasis in the work on guilt and terror and how those are uh, limiting, controlling us, keeping us in the illusion, and then how our defense mechanisms against guilt and terror
mm,
are denial, withdrawal, self righteousness, and rebellion. And so then the emphasis turns towards ourselves on surrendering control, giving up these defense mechanisms, moving through our experience of guilt and terror, which keeps us limited,
mhm.
dropping the illusion of limitations, and physically ascending and becoming infinite.
Well, I'm not one that believes a whole lot in coincidences. I'm a big believer more in synchronicities. And when, you know, ideally, like your book, this came up on my feed um, in and around the time that I had been reading a lot of articles on how, different frequencies out there keep us in these depressed states or anxious or fearful, and how these emotions keep us and draw us away from source, let's say. And this book talks about no, this is how we shed this, relinquishing the control. It has no place here. And in doing so, here's how you do it. And I'm thinking, brilliant. This is all falling into place in order. So I like that whole concept of letting go of the fear and all of those types of emotions. But there's again an ego that says, no, you can't gonna relinquish control. You're gonna hang on to everything. Like we hang on so tight. Why is it so difficult to just throw caution to the wind and say, I'm just gonna jump?
Well, you've actually just hit the nail on the head, because it is the ego
Mm,
that identifies as separate from the divine,
mhm.
that is clinging so tightly to this limited illusion,
Yeah.
because it is the idea of giving up our individuated small self ego is
Mhm.
it's so terrifying to the ego. We think that we're just gonna, we couldn't, we're gonna dissolve
Mhm.
into everything and we're gonna lose our identity, etc. This, we're very comfortable in the status quo, and we can't imagine
Mm.
dropping all our judgment and control. That will, what could be more terrifying than that, right? Hence the need for these uh, emotional techniques, the breath work and the body work and everything, to release these stuck,
Mhm.
what do I want to say, armoring in our physical body.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think some spots could definitely make it easier than others. The one that it really intrigues me, and I didn't know this when I looked, I started getting into Boynton Canyon, and they talk about, this place being the place where you go in to give up all of your attachments and so on. But I did not know that there was an Indian legend that claimed it was the beginning of creation.
Oh
That's a
wow.
powerful
Uh,
energy there.
Well, there again, wow. I'm barely I can barely keep up with all the ideas you're suggesting because again, you're you
Oh,
know
that's what's in the book.
I know, but
Yeah.
there's so many it, the the complexity. There's just
Mhm.
these layers of complexity, right? Because
Yeah.
the book is suggesting that each of these locations is optimal for doing a certain kind of
Yes.
release of
Yes.
releasing your physical limitations, releasing
Mhm.
your emotional limitations,
Mhm.
releasing your fear of death. So uh, these are again powerful places to
Mhm.
do so. But what we're skipping over is, this is that's Father Andre's emphasis. What about
Yeah.
the fact that you're in this canyon? What's the acoustic nature of the canyon? What's
Well,
like
and
the
that's why
dimension
you're here
in the
to
so
give us the
so
logistics.
I pull us back just a little bit. So,
Yeah.
again, we're in this acoustic space, and when you've got a rock, let's say you've got a rock, or
Mhm.
let's say you've got a bell, okay? You've got a
Mhm.
bell,
Yeah.
you haven't hammered it, it's not vibrating in that sense, it's still
Yes.
vibrating. It still
Mhm.
has its certain mass and shape, and it's vibrating whether you can
Mhm.
hear it or not. And it's
Mhm.
the same with this room or any room that you're in. There's
Mhm.
something called room noise. And if I'm filming for Hollywood and we're doing dialogue, I need to make sure, shh, everybody quiet. Let's get a minute of room sound, room level
Yes.
noise. Yeah,
Mhm.
because if I'm going to cut that, I need some silence to cut in later. Silence is never really silent.
Mhm.
So the acoustic space that you're in, that's going to generate a frequency. And maybe
Mhm.
it's one that you can hear and it's in the audible range, or maybe
Mhm.
it's not.
Mhm.
Um, there are other creatures, for example, elephants have these specialized cells in their feet where they can feel earthquakes.
Mhm.
So there's these other, acoustic ranges outside of human hearing, obviously.
Mhm.
But the there's going to be these other frequencies impinging on you, and sure, those are going to influence how your cells are functioning, and especially because we know that the brain is operating in these various low hertz ranges, alpha, delta, theta, different brain range
Mhm.
frequencies, and that those are associated with expanded states. It's I'm not making much of a leap to say, okay, our environment maybe can contribute to those brain frequencies. And I go even farther. I do. And again, I like to try and separate like what vortex researchers think from what I think and take ownership of what I think, but also
Mhm.
try to represent what the research is saying
And that's
broadly.
why I love having you
So,
on.
well, thanks. So, but
Yeah.
which is all just prologue for me saying that uh, I've got a little article on my website called Geometry of Consciousness, where I specifically say, hey, when you go out into the forest, you're looking at plants. Those plants are all growing in these fractal and geometric harmonic proportions. Those are going to harmonize your brain waves. Just
Mhm.
visually looking at nature with its fractal geometry, clouds, whatever it might be,
Mhm.
that's going to harmonize your brain waves. So I really am really digging uh, a deep trench, like well into the metaphysical, well below this kind of electromagnetic
Mhm.
inquiry into what is causing the paranormal and experience at places.
Mhm. Well, I believe energy has a way of imprinting. If, let's say, just because we started with Boynton Canyon, if, let's say, it claims that as per our Native American community there, that this was the beginning of creation, right? We can look at things like, and Wayne's comment here made a lot of sense. I've talked about this before. The energy that is present when a soul leaves the physical body is powerful. Therefore, it offered, that impact of the release, just the release alone of that energy from, within the physical realm, I would imagine could be felt if you're going back to the time of creation. And you just look at all of the wars that have happened against our indigenous within the Midwest and the West and so on. Would that not leave one heck of an imprint in energy, being especially within canyons and mountains and the soil, everything. So we would pick that up thousands of years later, hundreds for sure.
Well, you just glanced on something that is kind of my sweet spot.
Okay, yay,
Everything you
let's go.
in everything you said there, and like that was deep and wide, but there
Yeah.
was one sweet spot for me. So let's see if we can kind of hit it on all cylinders there.
Okay.
So totally agree
Mhm.
that the most powerful vortex is our own heart. That the earth is going to remember all my negative thought forms. I'm sorry, apologize, but it's also going to remember all my love. And so that when we go to these places
Mhm.
and we do ceremony and we chant and we drum and dance and we have gratitude, whether it's a pocket park or a cathedral, we're putting our love back into the system. That's incredibly healing for the whole system.
Mm.
So that soul energy, I'm going to frame the question a little broader
Okay.
and say, because we're coming from the standpoint of alchemy, there is no separation, there's no space, there's no distance between you and I. We're totally the same being.
Mm.
And there's no time either, because what is time except the distance between events? So of course, that time and space, that's part of the illusion of limitation that we're seeking to drop when we ascend and go into that infinite
Mm-hmm.
experience. When we do, we'll be able to look around in all space and all time.
Right. Correct. We are one. Right?
Let's
We
go.
are one. There we go. Absolutely. And everything is done with a mere thought. Not so much that, all right, I'm a traveling, I'm gone and it's going. you know, it's just like a mere thought. So
Yeah.
a lot of energy work gets done that way with a mere thought. So because I do energy work. So that's why I have a pretty decent understanding of it. But it also intrigues me as to what, how it applies in the physical realm. That's why I like the science side of everything. And when you talk about geology, it's like, see, I resonate with that. Resonate. But anyway, um, giving up our attachments. That's, letting go of our perceptions. I like how everything is a perception. I like how it's all worded.
Yeah. Again, I'm kind of chuckling to myself because this, having published this book now,
Yes.
it does draw me back to these days in the 80s when I was really intensively doing all this work about, like,
Pyramid power.
uh well, a
Yeah.
little bit of that, but no, more
Yeah.
like that. First of all, I was young back then and super immature.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I've matured a little bit,
Yeah.
I hope, but back then, super immature.
Yes.
And so this was the wake up call. I mean, I had the moment, and this might be the moment for some of our listeners, but when they realize my revelation was, oh my God, forgive me for saying that. My every thought is a judgment. Basically, there's affirmations or the positive statement. The negative statement we think of as a release statement. My
Mm.
release statement was like, I my every thought is a judgment. My life depends on having judgment.
Hmm.
If I surrendered my judgment, I would die. Those kinds of self-limiting thoughts. Now then you can reframe that into, the only judgment is divine judgment, or,
Mm.
there's ways of reframing it into a positive affirmation. Not coincidentally, Daniel means that God is my judge.
Ah.
So
So,
uh, the
mm.
there's a super deep emotional component to our own personal ascension. And so this teacher, Father Andre, had a had a deep focus on releasing our limited perception, and that
Mm.
we're all hypnotized. We're just all hypnotized.
We're
So
sleepwalking.
so you want to choose the best programming you can, and you
Yeah.
continue to ask yourself, what is the highest truth? And in particular, don't believe everything you think, and
Mhm.
and seek out these inspiring teachers who can really bring up the level of conversation, so to speak.
Mhm. Few and far between, and there's just a lot of, um, shall we say, engineered frequencies out there that really keep us in that sleepwalking state of unawareness, which hinders our personal evolution. So, when you factor a lot of that in, it's really hard sometimes to tap into, the natural energies that are better for us.
Precisely right, and you mentioned that earlier as well, and I would
Yeah.
underline that there's we talk about these natural environments that have
Yes.
healing frequencies.
Yes.
And we talk about built environments, the cathedrals and such, that are built in harmonic proportions that have
Yes.
healing frequencies. But
Mhm.
unfortunately, the opposite is also true, that anything that can heal can kill anything that
Mm.
has any energy at all. So that when
Mhm.
you do go into a place, let's say, whether it's you're going in like, I'm going to a vortex, or I'm going
Mhm.
to, I don't care, the DMV, or whatever it is,
Yes.
that if you're self-aware, you should be self-aware that if you start to feel in a certain way, nauseous or whatever it might be for you,
Mhm.
to be aware that, maybe it is this place, and that I should remove myself from this place. And it's a million different subtle things that we might not be normally attending to. We're in this acoustic environment that wasn't designed as acoustic environment.
Mhm.
It's not built to harmonic proportions. It's got odd angles. It's angular instead
Mm.
of, as an acoustic environment should be, more uh, in the shape of the human form,
Mhm.
curvilinear. And then there's the things that are vibrating in the environment, or perhaps the lighting is flickering at a certain frequency, and
Mhm.
then
Mhm.
we're exposed to certain music in the environment, maybe against our will, as we go out in public. And that music is not only composed as what it is, but of course, there's that deeper level of that it's tuned to that equal temperament that we're using today and such. So there's that deeper level of the hertz frequencies of the sounds and such. So
Mhm.
just so
Mhm.
many different levels. There's the electromagnetic pollution that's coming from our Wi-Fi and what have
For
you. So
sure, for sure.
these things, I think, can't help. Just like light pollution cuts us off
Mhm.
from the stars, these other kinds of electromagnetic frequencies are in our environment are necessarily, there's just going to be more noise in the signal.
Mhm. Yes, I agree 100%, and that's a show that can go in a whole other direction, but there's so much to it if you're talking about, frequencies in general. Um, in the book, you or Father Andre basically mentions that we have this perception that, only the soul is eternal and the physical, not so much. The more being immortal and that the body is a
Yeah.
more of a creation or vehicle. We don't deny that it is eternal, or we do deny that it is eternal. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Father Andre's teachings
Mhm.
hinged on this apparent dichotomy.
Mhm.
And again, the reunification of the polarities that
Mhm.
appear to be split. Right, we're trying to use language to convey these ineffable ideas, but in Father Andre's teachings, well, what was foundational was that some people, that there was essentially the war between the angels, uh, represents this. what we'll say archetypal split between people who believe that God is physical and people who believe that God is not physical. And
Mm.
so that the of course the highest truth there is that both both are true. God is both physical. Everything physical is divine
Mm.
God, and God is also non-physical. And so that there's actually an archetypal split in our story as a species in our consciousness
Mm.
between God is physical, no, God is not physical. So that results in us believing that, well, the soul is immortal, it's not physical, and it's going to live on. The body, it's physical, it can't possibly be immortal. Well, this is not the highest truth.
Mhm.
The physical is also divine conscious God and has potential to ascend and to become infinite.
I guess you see it with Enoch, right?
Exactly right.
Yeah, and
Sure.
I think it was offered to what, Ezekiel. So if you're getting into that side of thing, Jesus himself,
Mhm.
if
Of
you're getting
course.
into that, all of that. So,
Mhm.
but but does that fall into a little bit about trying to manifest this for ourselves? Removing barriers, revealing ourselves, and getting into this total manifestation. That's hard. People are like, "Oh, yeah, you can just manifest anything. I want $1 million in a house by the ocean. Is that gonna happen if I manifest it?" I don't think so. So there seem to be, barriers in there somewhere, rules.
Our limited perception, and I'm, guilty, guilty.
Yes, same. Yes. So the art of manifestation and removing different barriers, or having the illusion that we can't actually manifest the things that we need, just to exist in this place, or, you know,
Right. So there are these are important ideas for me,
yes.
and in practice on the ground, what can I do? Can I can I read this book and apply this to my own life wherever I am, even if I'm across the world from Sedona? And the
Mhm.
answer is yes. The book has a number of techniques mentioned, at least. Psychokinesiology or muscle testing is one. It's similar to dowsing, but using the muscles to test on truth of certain, not just physical, but also emotional statements that you might make. Um, Father Andre, at each of the locations, each of the nine, because the 10th one is all combined, he leads the group at the time through different practices. One that I found particularly engaging in hindsight was that he had a drummer stand at one point, one vortex, as the group stood at another, so that the acoustic sound, the drum was carrying from one point to the other.
Hmm.
From masculine to feminine, if I recall rightly.
Hmm.
So there's that. There's also the um, affirmations. There's a number of those affirmations in the book, and you know, can't recommend that highly enough. That
Yeah.
your listeners work with journaling and affirmations, and releasing those limiting negative statements that you've been programmed with. Uh, then that's often like, there's no free lunch, right? Whatever that is, you write that in there, your release statement, and then you work to reverse or invert that. And I think here of the tarot card of the hanged man,
Yeah.
inversion.
Mhm.
There's this idea, what's the polarity, and take that release statement and invert it in the highest truth. And what's the affirmation that, and now I have to give the example, right? So the opposite of no free lunch would be something like,
Abundance.
the universe is just infinitely abundance, and all I have to do is surrender and receive, and so be it.
Yes.
And you work
Yes.
with that, and variations of so that journaling and affirmation work, that's another technique there. And there's different techniques suggested at each of the places, and so the reader might just apply that to their own situation.
Mhm. it's almost like, he's inadvertently giving you hints and trying to teach you on how to break away from traditional conditionings or standard conditionings of society, that have been instilled onto us to put you in this. I just say, it's okay to be logical, but there are teachings, within our education, within our faiths, within everything. Some have it more together than others, like, but it just seems to be more like bop, bop, bop. Just this is the way it is, like this. But you're coming in there's like, no, 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 no. Just push that aside and open yourselves up and reach within, and anything is possible.
For sure. And I should say that Father Andre himself said that Jesus was his teacher. So
Yeah,
it's,
yeah. Yeah,
like,
absolutely. I'm not that's why I said some have it more together than others.
oh, just to say, like,
Yeah.
it's the same
Yeah.
lineage, in terms
Yeah.
of, uh, the works that I do, you shall do greater,
Yes.
is that Jesus is showing us the way towards our own ascension.
Yes. But he also says, look within. The
Look,
kingdom of God is within you. So
that's
reach
right.
within.
The I am that I am.
Yes, all of that. So
Yeah.
are we just looking in the wrong place? Like you say, we seem to have been taught look up for one thing, look down for another, whereas really it's within. We're the vortex, right?
That too. That's Thanks for drawing that connection there, right?
For all
That is
those
I
who
am.
may be watching. Yeah.
The Egyptian Book of the Dead and
Yeah.
the Tibetan Book of the Dead
Yeah.
have a number of things in common, as different as they are. And one of those things is that when you arrive on the other side of the veil after death,
Mhm.
uh, you you have essentially one choice or
Yeah.
two choices, because one is to arrive and say, I am Ra.
Mhm.
I am, I and the Father are one, or
Mhm.
to deny that, in which case things don't work out well in the afterlife. So you have to step in with, I am that I am,
Mhm.
into the
Mm.
afterlife. And so the but I love the parallel that, I am the vortex.
I am the vortex. I am. I truly believe that we are really powerful beings, and I believe that it was bestowed upon us in one form or another. Whatever your faith may lead you. I think if it offers something, very positive, then that's wonderful. Like I said, some closer than others, and but logically speaking, you know, even Princeton University just released something about frequency within ourselves and how we are energy and we emit this frequency. So we're definitely that. And I think when we go to places, um, like Sedona, since we're talking about the book, and Father Andre has just described how every energy felt, how every vortex would do something different for you. And I think we can easily meld into these energies. And I think it's great that there are ways that he's teaching you how to do this in the book and that you're bringing it back to light. And there's just some people though that it's like they just don't recognize that connection. I mean, there's people who could go. I've gone with people to incredible places. Like, I don't feel anything. It's like, how? How do you not feel this? This place is incredible.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, for sure. We have to let people have their own experience of the place,
Yeah.
which may be no
Mhm.
experience at all.
Yeah.
But
Kind of happens. so, so, um, I suppose I should have asked this at the beginning. Who exactly was Father Andre?
yeah, I do in the well. First of all, let me say this before we go there.
Hmm.
The I would not have released this book,
Hmm.
this information, unless I thought that it was going to be useful for people. It's not just about Sedona, just like the Stonehenge book, Stonehenge Gardening Tips. It's not just about Stonehenge. Stonehenge is kind of the poster child for all ancient monuments.
Yes.
Sedona is the poster child for all vortexes. So you'll be able to generalize this information
Mhm.
broadly to any vortex or place that you're
Yes.
visiting and doing ceremony.
Mhm.
So firstly, that. Now, secondly, this is again, it's a lengthy backstory about how I ended up, which I won't go into. I'll give you the abridged version, but I ended up in Austin, Texas, at an opportune moment to be, I don't want to say inducted, but to join this healing group in Austin, Texas. And there was this beautiful woman who'd been a model named Karen, who went into channeling and eventually eyes open conscious channeling of this being called Father Andre. Now, this being didn't identify who he was. He was pretty cagey, but he
Mhm.
did say in his last lifetime he had been a monk in a Carmelite abbey, and that he had struggled with his own limitations, kneeling on hard monastic floors and whatever else, and spending too much time drinking wine and all the human frailties and foibles. But he did eventually achieve physical immortality, lived 300 years, and
Hmm.
eventually achieved his ascension. And he, as an ascended being, has perhaps more well-known names, but he was adamant at the time that he did not want to rest on the laurels of his better known personas, and that he wanted his message to stand on its own. And so I might leave it at that. I think that when you read anything, that it will either resonate with you, it'll ring true,
Mhm.
or it won't, and you can take whatever's useful and let the rest go. So it's really up to the reader to just check
Mm.
into their own self, or maybe their dowsing rods or pendulum, to see if this information really is vibrating at
Mhm.
99.9%. And I'll take responsibility for that 0.1% if people find it wanting. I'm sure I put some typos in there along the way, but the first part of the information, it's about the 10 vortices, and then there's a second part in the book, which is an interview I did with the being who called himself Father Andre, and that uh, goes more into how he came and got me when I was still living in Santa Fe, California. Uh, he came in and got me in a very mysterious fashion. Showed up late one night and in disguise.
Hmm.
And so it's a longer story, but
Yeah.
I that was the beginning of the sequence of events that led me to Austin to study with this ascended master for about a year and a half, and to this day is still the most inspiring speaker, the most inspiring material I've ever heard.
Mm. I agree. It really was a super interesting read. It was definitely enlightening, and it just again, it resonates because it's just stuff that I pick up on, not just again, like I've never been to Sedona, but just in touching. That's why I like rocks. I get rocks from no matter where I go in the world because I could feel that resonance that comes through them. It does hold a certain energy.
Oh gosh, yeah. Since you mention it, probably next edition of the book, I'll include more photos of the locations, because certainly a person could pick up a lot of the energy of the place. You could do like Google image search on the web and
Oh, I did.
come up with the image of Boyne Canyon or whatever it is that
Yeah.
you enjoy that
Mhm,
vibrates with you, uh,
mhm,
and meditate on that for that part of that
mhm.
shot. Yeah.
Yes. So do you think, what Father Andre was trying to achieve with this this book? Do you think that he managed to do that? Do you think you'll manage to do that by carrying it forward and adding your 2 cents worth, as you say, is putting it in.
Well, I think our ripple effect is just immeasurable.
Hmm.
That there's been many guides and masters along the way
Yes.
who have left signposts,
Hmm.
and I'm indebted to them. So it's just an honor
Hmm.
to leave signposts along the way for people, pointing the way to their perfection.
Yes. Well, I'm glad that you've brought it back to light. I know I certainly enjoyed it, and I did put up your email in the
Good, good.
in the chat. So you guys go in and email Dan. Get yourselves a copy of this. You will not regret it. And check out the website. Check out Dan's website as well, because there's a lot of great information there. And the Vortex maps, also a great website. And you get some insight into what this man actually does and what he's written about. So, what do you have coming up? Do you want to promote anything you have coming up?
Hmm. Well, thanks for asking. I I'm in Southern Oregon,
Mhm.
about a little more than an hour north of Mount Shasta.
Oof.
So I always invite people, and I'm right off the interstate as well. So um, the weather's a little harsh right now, but if you're coming through the area, I invite you to reach out to me. Perhaps we can get together for a cup of tea.
Mm.
I do tours, uh, affordable tours, I'll say, of the entire region. If you want to fly into San Francisco and we'll see Yosemite and Tahoe and Shasta and Crater Lake, or the redwoods, the coast, whatever you want to do, look me up. I don't have any group tours organized at the moment, but would
It's
love
still all private.
love to get together on the landscape with people and take a walk.
I love that. I love that. And thank you so much for returning and indulging me in this conversation.
Thank
My
you, thank you.
my brain goes in totally all these different spots because I know I want to cover as much as possible, pick your brain as much as possible. It's hard to sort of do it in a row. Hence why I asked about Father Andre before I was dying to get into the book itself. But I'm glad that we were able to cover it. So thank you for that. And thanks to everybody in the chat room. You guys are always really awesome. Thank you. Um, Wednesday night, Samuel Chong returns. You've guys have seen him on the Outer Realm before. We're going to be getting into Michel Desmarquet's book again. We're revisiting and I never say this right. He's going to come on and do it for us. But the Theoba prophecy, a true story. Do you know it?
I'm familiar.
Do you know how to say it? 'Cause I don't.
Can't be confident.
Theuba?
That sounds good.
Does it? Okay, I'm going to go with that. I'm just
It's
going to say it.
mysterious stuff. I'll have to tune in.
Yeah, you know what? He actually translated the book to English, and he's been doing the circuit for a long time.
Kidding.
And I'm a little more versed in it, now than when we first talked, back a couple of years ago. But it is a true story of travel through time and space to the golden planet, to which he translated. We'll talk about reclaiming our lost knowledge, how it can be applied today in aiding humanity, forging a better future with an open mind. And there's just so much that will be covered in this. It's just a brilliant, brilliant book. If you haven't got it, I highly recommend it. Also, Marilyn Hughes on Thursday will come back talking about she does astral travel. So it kind of gets into the channel thing a little bit. But through astral travel, she's written, I don't know, this woman's got like 400 books. I don't know. It's something outrageous. It's crazy. But the aliens of the redemption. So the mysterious role of extraterrestrials in the salvation history and ancient sacred texts. And so far, it's been super interesting. Also, starting next week, guys, I'm going to start promoting this now before I forget. Thursday night shows moving forward as of next week will all be at 8 p.m. Eastern time. You're all welcome. If I could do them both at 8 instead of 9, I would, because I know it gets a bit late for people when you're going 90 minutes, but it'll be 8 p.m. and that's the Outer Realm Thursday shows. So thank you all again, and we shall see you tomorrow evening. And thank you again, Dan. I appreciate you so much for joining me.
Great work. My honor. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow evening. Thank you all again for tuning in.